Hello, my friends. I think this is the right way to introduce this now. This is day 901 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and it's day 7 of Ukraine's incursion into Russia, or invasion into Russia. The Ukrainians aren't planning on leaving, so it's interesting to see what's going to happen next. Okay, losses of the occupiers. I was just looking at this and I just realized 92,000. This summer, the Russians have spent about 100,000 casualties. It's just incredible to watch how, and for very little real estate, they are making progress in the east near Pokrovsk, but for 100,000 casualties. 1,080 Russians off the battlefield, 3 tanks, 5 armored combat vehicles, 65 artillery, 66 vehicles and fuel tanks. Now, I understand that this only tabulates, and somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, only tabulates what's happening on Ukrainian soil. So that would explain some of the numbers being so low here. Okay, Andrew Perpetua's list, it's about 1-to-1. I mean, maybe even slightly more Ukrainian losses than Russian losses here. What's gone on, and again, I think that's also tabulating in Ukraine. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. Meanwhile, you got to remember that while all our attention is on Kursk, enemy continues to shell in Kherson, kills 1, 11, injures 11. Russian shell in Donetsk, killing 2 people. So it's still going on. Russian Z-bloggers report that a Ukrainian drone attack, on a military airfield in Moscow region, but we just don't know what has been the result of that. Okay, all our attention has been on Kursk, and there's a reason for that. This is a big thing. Andrew Perpetua said everyone who extremely foolishly and with significant damage to their long-term reputation stated that Ukraine had stopped advancing because of FSB propaganda said so can rest assured that no, Ukraine is continuing to advance in Kursk. Ukraine is continuing to advance. They've not stopped. Okay, here we go. Ukrainian flag is flying on the Kinburn Spit. This isn't in Kursk. This is in Ukraine. Main director of the intelligence of Ukraine raided the Kinburn Spit, Mykolaiv region, occupied by the Russians on August 9th. There are destroyed 6 units of armored vehicles, and the occupiers eliminated about 36 invaders. Where is this? This is down here on the Kinburn Spit. Okay, is it significant? No. Is it a moral victory? Yes. Did they actually destroy stuff? Sure. So, I mean, all the way around, it's a good thing, but it's not exactly a war game changer. Okay. Meanwhile, this nuclear the smokestack here was on fire, and Chebos posted first the desperate suicide mission into Kursk while the eastern front collapses. It's not collapsing. It's actually going to get stronger for Ukraine because of the movement of reserves and other troops from the eastern side. Now, dictator Zelensky has ordered the bombing of Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant. Insanity. Well, the insanity is saying stuff like this, but he's not making this up. It's RT making it up, and he's just repeating it. So he's repeating propaganda from RT that state that the 2 drone strikes started a fire. It wasn't 2 drone strikes. From everything that we understand, in attempts to stage a provocation, Russian army set car tires ablaze in one of the cooling towers of the nuclear power plant in Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia. So that's what the best that we understand, and it's really difficult because like one side just perpetually lies. The Russians they'll just make stuff up, and so trying to ferret out the truth is difficult. Okay, let's turn all our attention now to Kursk because that's what we all want to know about. Russian military bloggers now claiming that the size of Ukraine's incursion has expanded to cover 720 square kilometers of Russian territory. And it's funny because we can actually learn a lot from Russian military bloggers who are pro-Russian, where state media is pretty worthless. Again, 720, here's another view of it and in which directions that they're pushing out. And the Ukrainians aren't just doing this as a raid and going back. They plan to stay. According to Forbes, Ukrainian troops in Kursk Oblast, I keep saying Oblast. I wanted to say, I've been saying Oblast for so long and somebody corrected me. And so I'm like in the back of my mind, okay, Oblast. It's a new word to me. Oblast that have now advanced further into the region are planning to stay in the country. Breaking. Oh, by the way, somebody commented, why don't you just start, like learn how to pronounce things on Duolingo? So I have started on Duolingo. So I'm trying. I'm doing the best that I can, but, I'm trying to also relate the news as quickly as I can. Breaking. Ukrainian armed forces are storming the Kolotivka border, crossing, easy for him to say, crossing into Belgorod region at this time, according to Russian regional government. So there's another incursion down here. The other one's up here, and Belgorod was down here. Okay, so things are cooking off. Russia has begun evacuating residents from the Belovsky district in the Kursk region, according to an urgent announcement by local authorities. That's happening as well. Electricity has been cut off in the Gravovorsky district in the border of Ukraine, and that's in Belgorod. So that's where electricity has been cut. Russia evacuates more border areas amid Ukrainian advances, and overall emergency authorities say more than 76,000 people have been temporarily relocated to safe places in the Kursk region since Ukrainian forces stormed across the border. I see upwards of 100,000 people that have been relocated or have to have fled or are now refugees or some sort of status like that at this point. Kadyrov's troops captured by Ukraine after attempting to flee. Well, dozens of them have been captured. These are the TikTok warriors that, they're showing themselves shooting down a railroad track, but you're not seeing anybody on the other side. You're just seeing them, or shooting with, they have two guns simultaneously, and it's made for video. It's not made to actually fight. Okay. Now, how did Ukraine have the success? I just connected the dots yesterday in my last video last night before I finally called it for the day. By concentrating enough jamming resources in the Kursk sector, Ukraine neutralized Russia's drones, allowing their armor to cross open territory without being destroyed. Brilliant. Yeah, if they could jam enough, then they took that advantage that Russia would have had away from Russia. They didn't use them themselves. They're now using them. But yeah, that was pretty smart. Russia's defenses proved inadequate during a recent Ukrainian Kursk incursion. It's really more of an invasion than an incursion at this point. The ISW predicts this development may prompt Russian military leaders to allocate more resources for border protection and impact its large-scale offensive. Of course they have to do that. There's no doubt about that. The Economist, the AFU General Staff, has reported the transfer of Russian troops to the Kursk region from Kharkiv and Donbas. That's exactly what they were doing, and this was intended. This is what they want them to do. In connection with the offensive, the AFU in the Kursk region, Russian command began to transfer troops to this direction from Kharkiv and Donbas. That's easing the pressure on the attack toward Pokrovsk. They need to hold Pokrovsk for strategic reasons, and that's easing the pressure there. This is reported by The Economist with reference to anonymous source in the General Staff of Ukraine. Their commanders are not idiots, the Russian commanders. They are moving forces, but not as fast as they would like. They know that we can't stretch logistics 80 or 100 kilometers, and so they understand things. It's comforting to hear that the Ukrainian generals understand the actual situation. The invasion of the Kursk region has allowed Kyiv to take the initiative on the battlefield for the first time since the end of last year, ISW analysts believe. I read one article where Ukrainian soldiers were like, for the first time we feel like tigers. Yeah, because they're actually getting to be offensive and take the fight to the enemy. The U.S. Analytical Center believes that Ukraine's operation forced the Kremlin and Russian military commanders to react and redeploy forces and assets to the sector, and that's exactly what they're hoping to do. This is the Germans. Russian dictator has no control over anything, said Markus Faber, member of the German Bundestag. And a little bit lower, he said, the move shows the Russian population that their dictator has no control over anything and that the military leadership is overwhelmed. It is. A couple last things. I thought this was fascinating. Psychological warfare. A Ukrainian quadcopter with a loudspeaker. Russian soldier abandoned his comrades, says he laid down his arms after hearing the surrender message from a Ukrainian counterintelligence drone. So they sent this thing up with a loudspeaker, said, surrender, we've got you, we know where you are. The guy surrendered. He's going to live. For years, last couple things, dude, I got two more, this and the meme. For years, Russia has been helping to flood migrants into Western countries to fuel instability and sow chaos. And now with around 100,000 now pushed from the Kerch region, the Ukrainian army is about to give Russians a taste of their own medicine. That's right. I mean, they are flooding the border from Kerch into other neighboring states or oblasts within Russia. And yeah, it's not so pleasant. Okay, last little bit. Saw this on Twitter. And said, just hear me out a minute. East Ukraine. How about that? All right. It's just a joke. All right. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of people that care about Ukraine. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.